With Blue Monday, New Order distinguished themselves as a completely different band from Joy Division. The sound was different, the instrumentation was different, but the influence from the prior band still was at play. Today, we're going to be diving into the story, the production, and the danceability of New Order's Blue Monday. Hello there, it's Warren Hewitt. Hope you're doing marvellously well. Welcome back to another episode of the series. If you haven't already, please subscribe, and if you hit the notification bell, you'll be notified when we have more videos. Of course, if you're into production, you can go to producelikeapro.com and sign up for the email list and get a whole bunch of free goodies. The band New Order was formed from the members of Joy Division, following the tragic death of lead singer Ian Curtis. In 1980, guitarist Bernard Sumner, bassist Peter Hook, and drummer Stephen Morris founded the band, adding keyboardist Gillian Gilbert later that year. In 1981, New Order released their first single, Ceremony, with the B-side In a Lonely Place, which they had co-written with Ian Curtis just weeks before his death. Later that year, they released their first album titled Movement. Bassist Peter Hook has said that the only positive thing to come out of the Movement sessions was that producer Martin Hannett showed them how to use the mixing board. This allowed them to produce music themselves. While New Order was experimenting with their own production and trying to find their new sound post-Joy Division, they began to incorporate drum machines and synthesizers and frequented the Hacienda, a nightclub owned by their label Factory Records. They also traveled to New York City, where they were introduced to the New York club scene and genres like post-disco and electro music. And then, in 1983, New Order released Blue Monday, a combination of the influences from Joy Division, club music, and even a Clint Eastwood movie. Music would never be the same again. Now, let's dive into this incredible song, starting with the music that influenced it. Even though Blue Monday is a stark contrast from the music of Joy Division, it doesn't mean that this style of music was completely alien to them. In fact, Ian Curtis used to bring Kraftwerk albums for the rest of Joy Division to hear. This new electronic dance genre was something New Order was already very familiar with. And while Blue Monday would go on to influence so much music in the 80s and beyond, bassist Peter Hook is quick to name their own influences on this song. It's a great compliment to be told that you're one of the inspirations for dance music, but the truth is, we were borrowing from Kraftwerk. We were very inspired by people like Giorgio Moroder, Sparks, and people like that. The whole point of inspiration is that you take something as a starting point and then make it your own. We were very lucky to be able to do that with Joy Division and then with New Order. One major influence on this song was Donna Summer's Our Love, which featured a pulsating bass drum line, thanks to producer Giorgio Moroder. The song Dirty Talk by Klein and MBO also played a major influence in the rhythm of this song, with its straightforward electronic 4-on-the-floor beat. The members of New Order had heard the song while at the Hacienda nightclub. Lastly, Blue Monday features the sound of a monk chorus. This was sampled directly from the 1975 Kraftwerk song Uranium. This is a very early instance of one artist sampling another, creating a new song in the process. The essential kick drum pattern begins with those repetitive quarter notes, followed by a ping-pong-esque 16th notes from an Oberheim DMX drum machine, with a 4-on-the-floor pattern programmed by Stephen Morris. The hand clapping is layered on top with snares and hi-hats. This drum beat was recorded onto tape with effects added later. New Order took all of these elements from an existing dance scene and combined them into something new, while still putting their own spin on it. The best example of that unique spin can be found in Peter Hook's bassline. The primary bass in Blue Monday is, of course, a synth bass in pulsating octaves. And while you might think this would put the electric bass player out of a job, Peter Hook was never one to play by the rules. As we've discussed in our Love Will Tear Us Apart video, Peter Hook loved playing more melodically, in a higher register, or just generally messing with the traditional bass player's role. And Blue Monday was no different. Peter Hook plays an incredible line that is lifted directly from Ennio Morricone's soundtrack to the Clint Eastwood movie for a few dollars more.
And that's the famous line of Blue Monday that I stole from Ennio Morricone. In the studio, we were watching
for a few dollars more.
And I thought, I wonder if that'd work. Went in and got it. He says that. That's Ennio. Don't tell him.
So there's not a lot of bass playing in this song. It's mainly the keyboards, maybe the drum stuff, but the reality is what there is in there is very hooky. And yes, that is a pun. Peter Hook, of course, is really renowned for being a very melodic player. And in this song, he has some beautiful, simple melodies. So this is the Eastwood hooky bass. It is a replica of Peter Hook's Shergold 6-string bass, the Marathon 6-string bass, which I believe there was not very many made. I read somewhere 86 original of those made. So this is a replica of it, and it is a signature series model. So that's rather special. Now, what there is on this song is very limited in the way of bass playing. However, in true Peter Hook style, it's super hooky. So you've got the opening bass line. Very simple, but super hooky over that wonderful moving bass line. Which of course is played in a synth, but play that little simple line over the top, add a little bit of reverb to it, and probably the best ingredient of all, and that is the Electro-Harmonix Clone Theory pedal. So a little bit of reverb, a little bit of the clone theory, and that simple line. So later on in the song, Peter plays this little melody line, which is quite reminiscent of the melody. And it's beautiful because you can play that D minor using a bass. There's something really solid about the tone when you're playing melodic lines on a bass guitar, particularly a 6-string bass, because here we have a high E and B and G string. Like many of music's greatest moments, most of the soundscapes were accidents, and some even based on, yes, I'll say it, flatulence. Even the characteristic timing or off-timing is a mistake made by keyboardist Gillian Gilbert when programming the sequencer and making use of the Prophet 5. The idea was to create a machine to make people dance, so that they could play the music effortlessly live. Ironically, the band faced many technical challenges whenever they tried to play it live, like on March the 31st, 1983, at their Top of the Pops performance. The synthesizer melody is slightly out of sync with the rhythm. This was an accident. It was my job to program the entire song from the beginning to the end, which had to be done manually by inputting every note. I had the sequence all written down on loads of A4 paper. sellotape together the length of the recording studio, like a huge knitting pattern. But I accidentally left a note out, which skewed the whole melody. We'd bought ourselves an Emulator 1, an early sampler, and used it to add snatches of choir-like voices from Kraftwerk's album Radioactivity, as well as recordings of thunder. Bernard and Stephen had worked out how to use it by spending hours recording farts. Keeping up with this robotics theme, Sumner can be heard singing into the microphone with little to no emotion. A vocoder track is included with Sumner's vocals, adding texture to the song as a whole.
How does it feel to treat me like you do when you've laid your hands upon me and told me who you are? Thought I was mistaken. I thought I'd heard your words. Tell me, how do I feel? Tell me now, how do I feel?
What's so incredible about Blue Monday is that it was created in a time before computers and MIDI data. Sumner himself has described Blue Monday as more of a drum machine than anything else. The engineer on this song was Frank Arkwright, who they had worked with during their Joy Division days, and would continue to work with as New Order. Though he may not always be officially listed, producer Martin Hamnett had a huge influence on the band, particularly Bernard Sumner. On the writing sessions in Cheetham Hill, Sumner recalls how they first started to incorporate the latest technological advances into their music. "I'd built this sequencer from an electronics kit. We programmed everything in step time using binary code digital readouts. It was complicated. We could drive a synthesizer through it, but we couldn't hook it up to anything. Steve had bought a drum machine, but we couldn't get the sequencer to talk to it. Through Martin Hamnett, we'd gotten to know this scientist called Martin Usher. So I took the sequencer and the drum machine to him, and he designed a circuit that could make them speak to each other. The day that we wrote it was the day that we brought the circuit in, hooked it all up, and pressed go on the drum machine. Then the synthesizer started chattering away, and somehow it all worked." Rob thought it was witchcraft. He really did. That sounds weird now in an age of the internet, but he really thought it worked by magic. New Order were combining a lot of elements into the song. Their early Kraftwerk influences from the Joy Division days, including a Kraftwerk sample, some Donna Summer, Klein and MBO, Peter Hook's bass style, some Clint Eastwood, and a bit of what seemed like witchcraft at the same time. The result is a classic dance song that went on to be a major influence in the 1980s and beyond. Blue Monday was released on March the 7th, 1983, and music would never be the same. BBC Radio 2 has described the song as a crucial link between 70s disco and the dance house boom that took off at the end of the 80s. And it holds the record for being the UK's best-selling 12-inch single of all time. Blue Monday was a hit several times in the UK, first in 1983, charting twice at number 12, and then again at number 9 later in the year, and it peaked at number 5 in the US Billboard Hot Dance Club Play charts. With this song, New Order distinguished themselves as a completely different band from their days as Joy Division. And in some ways, Blue Monday feels like the equal opposite of Love Will Tear Us Apart. As Bernard Sumner explains, "I think Love Will Tear Us Apart connects with people because of the emotional content within the song. And I think Blue Monday connects with people because of the startling lack of emotional content within the song." It's kind of contradictory, really. I think the way that everything in it is synchronized. So it's like all of these different gear cogs meshing together, and each synthesizer part is like a different gear. It all comes together like clockwork. If I could properly explain it, I'd write another one. But that's the beauty of music. There's no method to it. Blue Monday is a song that defined a band, influenced so much music that came after, and still remains a classic track. Well, thank you ever so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Please check out the other videos in the series and subscribe, hit the notification bell, and we'll see you all again very, very soon.